Big announcement today at the football club. Holden come on as the major sponsor for the next few years. This is big. It just adds to the list of verified stereotypes surrounding Collingwood and its supporters. But it's certainly a glimpse into the future, as has been the last week on field against Sydney. Another unfortunate loss, but one that we take in our stride. GC, what did you think of the game?
Oh, well, it was almost another. It was in this group of our honourable losses, which is better than our dishonourable losses. So it was another one, I think, a little bit like probably more akin to the Hawthorn game, where I think we probably had the better of the game and we kicked ourselves out of it. I thought we had some really promising stuff from some of our kids, but it was disappointing at the end of the day.
What did you think of it, Magpie Girl? And what did you think of the SCG from what we could see, obviously, through the television?
Well, look, it was a tense sort of game to watch, and a bit frustrating, I suppose. Could have gone either way. Seemed to be a really slippery surface. Yeah, look, it was a bit, you sort of just knew in the last couple of minutes they weren't going to pull it off. They just rushed things again and panicked a bit. And I don't think I've ever seen a more disappointed Buckley than in that press conference after the game. He was really gutted by that loss and just seemed to be one that he felt more than all the others.
I think it seemed to me like his dejection sort of came from, just this understanding that, hey, now these losses are going to define our season. And that's not the type of person he is, not the type of coach he wants to be. That's how it looked from my perspective. What are your thoughts?
I think he was just really disappointed, and maybe for the first time really showed a bit of frustration. He's been really, I think he's been very fair in his, and really honest in his approach to the losses. But this time, I felt that he was really disappointed this time. It was almost like this one he felt like really was within our grasp, and that we lost it. Yeah.
And also, I think because, he has set a benchmark of saying we want to play finals this year. That was the aim. That was his aim, and this was the realisation. Well, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Yep.
This was the final throw. It had become unlikely, but now it's almost certain. So it was like this is the last chance we have to fulfil the aim of the year.
And interestingly, he said, they played it as if it were final. So that's heightened the disappointment for him. Yeah.
It certainly had that atmosphere about it, and we certainly had our chances to win. Did you get the chance to see him on the couch on Monday night, GC?
No, I missed that.
Well, look, I'll just to sum up, it was really, as all interviews with Bucks are, they're all very enlightening, and he works the media well. But he was very honest, and you could see that dejection and that disappointment on his face. And the one thing he said was, whilst obviously the club believes it's in the right direction, the truth is, if results don't come, then obviously, something has to change. And I think that he's very aware of his position, that it may very quickly become untenable at some point next season if those results start showing. So well and truly come next year, I think that the pressure certainly starts to mount.
Oh, yeah.
He's a perfectionist anyway, and he would want that for himself, regardless.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think next year is it's a non-negotiable of we have to improve, and we probably really have to make finals. He's as much as there's sort of riders and everything on why we've gone down in his tenure, we have gone down every year. Yeah. And if you've been at a club for 5 years, you cannot continue to keep going down and just say, believe in me. He has to he's had the time to do what he needs to do. Now he has to come up, and if he's going to make it as a coach, next year is crucial for him.
Yeah,
it's just such a fickle game, football. One goal extra against Richmond, and you probably win. A couple of goals against Hawthorn, we should have converted. You probably win. You probably win the Sydney game, given the amount of opportunities. If you add those three on, that's 3 more wins against top 8 teams. You've then beaten half the top 8 as opposed to what currently stands as 1 of the top 8, and you're perceived very differently. The question that I'd like to pose to you, GC, and to you, Magpie Girl, is: have we improved from last year? Where last year I think we beat 6 of the top 8. Missed out on finals, similar run home, injuries. But have we improved? Because that, I think, is the question on most supporters' minds.
Oh, look, I think we have. And I think if you just took the sort of thing of saying ladder position and that, you can say, well, you haven't. But I think the performance, I think the quality of our performance in our losses is much better. I think it's reflected in our percentage. It's reflected in that we've pushed teams like Hawthorn where we looked like absolute bunnies against them last year. And I think we should have improved, because last year we had a much worse injury run. So even if we finish 10 or 11 wins, I think undoubtedly our performance looks better, and it's open for people who want to criticise, because they want to criticise to say we're no better. But I think anyone who really wanted to be a bit analytical and sort of objective about it would say Collingwood look better this year than they did last year.
And the fact is, we've also done it with a younger team while blooding a lot of young players. So, look, I think there's a lot to take away from this season. And speaking of some of those young players, Jordan De Goey got his just reward. Finally, it only took 20 rounds this season, but his just reward for his Rising Star nomination, which is just excellent. And the first of many accolades. But he was just one of the few shining lights. Him, Darcy Moore, who is a real goer and is really trying his best and looks about 5% off really just destroying a game. And, even the inclusion of Jonathan Marsh. I mean, those are 3 guys that you've got to look at this season and say, hey, this is about these guys and what they've done.
I think absolutely true. I think De Goey, the thing I like to see when I look at a highly rated youngster is they don't have to do a whole lot, but they have to do a few things that you think, well, that's a little bit special. That's not what your average player does. And that kick that he got smother, and then he grabbed it again, and the tight left foot snap for goal that goes through. All right, that's just something that's a bit intuitive, a bit just a special player does that. And he's done those things through the year, taking a mark that you didn't expect him to take, and that's going to feed onto the future. So I think that's and I think Darcy Moore's in the same thing. And I think Marsh took the game on. He did a few things where he created. He looked like a much, much more mature player than he is.
Yep.
And that's what I really like to see in those young blokes.
Yeah, absolutely. It certainly looks like a player.
In that second half, didn't he? He really put his stamp on the game. It was terrific.
Oh, I think he looks exciting.
Definitely, very, very exciting footballer. And look, and that doesn't take away from the other guys who've debuted this year: Maynard, Scharenberg, all those 5 names could quite comfortably be in 2 years in our best 22 with plus 60 games of experience, and really looking at quite a strong core for a premiership run. And I think that's what we sort of have to take away from this year. Disappointing, should have made finals, but we've got to take the positive, which is the talent that we have is starting to develop, and it'll come good at some point.
Yeah, and Jack Crisp is the other one, because I think he's just been such a success story. But I think he dropped off a little bit the last few weeks, but I thought he was back to near his best on against the Swans. He's going to be a really solid player for us for a long time, and I didn't have him marked down at the start of the year.
What about Otterbury? What's the story with him? He just didn't get into the game the other night.
Pendles?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just off a little bit at the moment. I think there's some people think he's carrying an injury. It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
He just Swanee's come in and in behind him. I think the one thing I'm thinking is interesting is the Copeland at the moment, which I reckon is a race between Swan and Pendlebury, and I think Swanee might just have sort of ranged up on the outside of him at the moment, and it might be down to these last couple of weeks. And I think Swanee could even snag with a couple of BOGs, and he'll be an All-Australian, I reckon.
He's had a couple of fantastic weeks.
He's certainly powered through this back half of the season and hit some absolute top form. The other one I like for the Copeland will be a roughie, but will certainly poll very well. Travis Varco.
Yeah, absolutely.
Has been an insanely consistent performer this year. Has shown an edge that I never thought him to have as a Geelong player. There's even a leadership factor about him. You know, he just looks like, you know, he's a leader out there, and he's taken that mantle on.
He's been a touch undisciplined in the last couple of games.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah,
I think that's fair. I think he's imposing himself on the game and probably going that little bit extra.
I think he's a bit more mature and a bit older, and he's probably always seen himself as a more skill-based. And this year he said to himself, well, actually I can tackle a few blokes, and while I'm there I'll give him this odd bloke a clip. I think he gave that young Clem Smith against Carlton, he gave him he just hit him a little bit late and he got that 50-metre penalty, but it wasn't Travis Varco of Geelong doing that.
No.
Definitely not. Speaking of hits, Nathan Brown got off with a week. Right call, wrong call, and what were your thoughts on the situation?
Oh, I'd take the week every time.
Absolutely.
I think, I don't think it was a terrible thing, and as much as they carried on a bit about Parker, who I love, and he's tough, but he clearly, it looked like a bad hit, but he wasn't hit hard in the head, so he wasn't concussed or anything, and that's why he jumped up straight away, which I think went in Brownie's favour, but it was a bit crude. So, take the week and move on.
Yep.
Absolutely. And look, you know what? It shouldn't be a blemish on Brown, who's had such a really good season, who I hope will be considered All-Australian. I think he's conceded 23 goals within 18 games this year, which is just staggering considering he plays on the best forward every week. Really, really good form. And mind you, to think that, there were little rumours this week about Jake Carlisle coming in. There are a few people who would mention that, Brown would go out for Carlisle. I think that people are a bit deluded. Brown's the cornerstone of that back line at the moment.
So who will come in for Brown?
In the event that someone like Jake Carlisle crossed over.
Well, this week.
This week. This week, look, you know what, if it was me and we're playing Richmond and I'm having a look at their lineup, I'd think to myself, you probably don't need to bring a tall in. You probably don't even need to bring... I think Goldsack today has been officially ruled out of all football for the weekend.
Oh, really? Why?
Yeah.
He's been nursing knee tendonitis, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised to see Matt Scharenberg brought back and see Marsh take on a tall role like he has been in the VFL. I think it's sort of the sort of the role definitely he played in the VFL and something that maybe Bucks will want to try out. But then again, he's been quite successful off the half-back line. What do you think, Jesse?
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely. I think I'd love to see Scharenberg have another game, and I'd also love to see Paddy Carnesis get a run this week too. I think we need. You can only. I think he had 30 posies and 2 goals, even though we lost in the VFL. But he's doing that week in, week out. He must get a game. We just need to see what he does. He deserves to go.
This is the argument that I made for Jesse White. Jesse White had 7 shots on goal, and I think could have had 6 goals within a quarter and a half of football. The guy is doing all he can at VFL level. And mind you, he's under contract for next year. This isn't a guy who's going to get delisted or traded. We're not going to pay him out.
No, he's definite next year. So
you've got to see what he can do within the system. Especially considering you've now got Reid and Cloak playing football. This is something. It's a time to try it.
Do you think they'll put Reid down the back?
They could, but I think what Mighty T said. From a supporter's point of view, I'd love to see, because we've all wanted to see. Well, a lot of us wanted to see what Reid, Cloak and Jesse White as the floater does. And then I think now I'd love to see, because I'm a Marsh fan, and I just thought his aerial work in the VFL is very good, and I think he can. I'd love to see him on Jack Rewald because he's about the same size, and I think his pace and all that sort of thing. I mean, he's got the attributes that would make him a good opponent for Rewald. And I think that's the way I'd go this week.
That's the matchup that I was thinking of.
Pardon?
That's the matchup that I would be considering, and even though it's a big challenge against a two-time Coleman medalist, it's going to be such a great learning experience for him. And
Rewald's not tall. Rewald's not a big man, and Marsh has got pace. So Marsh has got he's got the right attributes to play against a bloke of that size.
Yeah, absolutely. So it even works in our favour because I don't see Richmond as being an overly tall a team with an overly tall forward structure. So considering that Brown is out and he's probably the most cumbersome of our defenders, not that he's a liability in that area, but if you're looking at Frost, Tuvey, Marsh, very athletic back six coming up for this week's game, and hopefully Scharenberg can get a little run.
Yeah.
Disappointing to see the VFL side lose though, especially from a position of strength. I didn't get a chance to watch the game, but GC, have you had a look at it, and what are your thoughts over that?
I've only read the reports, and it seems we faded badly in the last quarter, and that was disappointing because a lot of the reports say a lot of the blokes that we'd like to see up and about were Carnesis, Kennedy, and Scharenberg and White were all prominent wits. I heard actually Tradedraft wasn't a big rep for his last quarter, but he was. I think he was named our best almost. So all those guys are pushing up, but it was a bad loss in the end.
Look, it'll be good to see us in play VFL finals. We've certainly played like a top four side, and it's disappointing to lose in that manner. But even that experience would be great for a young list. And I think that guys like Reid, Marsh will obviously be available for VFL finals, considering they've played the majority of the season. I think they qualify. So the guys that certainly need to keep up continuity in games will certainly be there come finals time, even though the AFL side might finish a little early this year.
Yeah. The other one against Sydney, I think we should really. I mean, I know we mentioned briefly, but we should highlight was I thought Darcy Moore to start poorly because he didn't have a great first quarter and a half, and then he really, for a young bloke to sort of put that behind him and come on, and he really he was an influencing player in that game, and he's so athletic. He just looks exciting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I even liked his distribution of the ball. I think it was early in the game where he took the mark out, so he lowered his eyes and he spotted up Pendles. And that's not a lot of tall. I know it's a small thing, but a lot of tall forwards, if you look at the Cloaks of the world, wheel onto the right and bang inside 50 as deep as you can. That shows it just shows a bit of composure and measure and football intelligence.
Or was it Swanee? Was it one he kicked to Swanee in the goal square?
It might have even been Swanee in the goal square. Yeah.
Yeah, it was He was absolutely just. He doesn't get a lot of positions, but God, he looks.
Got smart, hasn't he? When he,
he's got a lot of attributes.
So, turning our attention to this week's game, it is going to be. It's always a fun game against Richmond, and I do like playing them, and I do love the idea that we could really just spoil their party. And put a little dent into the armour coming into their little finals campaign. What are your thoughts coming into this week, and what are some of our expectations?
No, I think we touched on the. I'd love to see. It's always easy to put players in, but I would like to see Jesse White. I'd like to see Carnesis, and I'd like to see Scharenberg, just because they're blokes that we need to know more about. But probably the biggest thing, I'd love to see the three big blokes operate for the first time in an AFL match together and see what they can do. Yep. It's going to suit Jesse White, I'm sure. And Carnesis is the other one. I don't know how we quite fit him in, but and the other thing, there's a bit of talk about him leaving, which I'm not sure how true that is, but I just think you want to say let's get it. Give him a chance and see what he can do.
Absolutely. Look, it seems like he's deserved it. He's certainly worked hard enough in the VFL, and you have to reward that. You have to reward that effort. And I'd like to see him come in. I would like to see Jesse White play. Sharon Berg, I think, as I said before, would come in for Brown. Who goes out? Look, it's tough, because I mean, I do struggle to take names out of the side because it's not a case of everyone's been amazing and that's why we're such a good team and we can't drop anyone. But the players that you'd look at omitting really should stay in the side either for the sake of experience or the sake of continuity in their football. So it still becomes a tough task. And Bucks has come out this week and said, look, we're going to pick our best 22, doesn't matter our position, and we're going to try and win the game. It's a great attitude to have.
Yep. So Brown's out. You've got one out. And
so they're not really about if he's saying that, then they're not about experimenting.
Or tanking, no.
Yeah.
So...
but I think those other blokes, you can make an argument for the good of the team too. All of them, you could say, have deserved a spot. It's not putting someone in just who hasn't been playing well.
Yeah.
They're all playing well in the VFL.
I mean, if I were taking someone out, it'd probably end up being someone like Greenwood. And that's not because, not a knock on him. I don't think he's been terrible. But I think that it'd be more beneficial to him to play a full game of VFL football and play VFL finals and do that this year and hit 2016 ground running, then 15, 20 minutes on the sub vest and try and be a player he isn't. He's not an impact player. He's not a burst player. He's a grinder, tough player. So that's one that I'd potentially look at for someone like Paddy Kay, who can have that impact if he is the sub and has a little bit of X factor about him. And can create a lot more. So that's potentially one. But it's certainly interesting at the selection table.
Yeah, that's why we're glad we're not selectors.
Absolutely right. Despite how maligned he is, Alan Tuvey notches up his 150th this week, and for a guy who was taken as a rookie pick to end up as a premiership player and a 150 game player for the club is such a magnificent achievement.
Oh, yeah, and maligned he should not be because he's definitely best 22. What he does, his seniority, his hardness at the ball, and he does create. He creates there's a lot of times he hits contests really hard and picks out balls that we wouldn't get and creates something. He does turn over the odd one, but his positives, he's well outweigh the negatives, and I think he's been, he's just been an ornament to our team, and he's definitely still best 22. Don't tip out. We've got a young back line. Brown's out this week. Tuvey will be the guiding light down there this weekend, and the young blokes will learn so much from watching how he goes about it.
Well, you know what? He has been an ornament of our team, and look, I think it's his spot until someone legitimately takes it from him.
Yep.
And we've said the same about Blair. We've said the same about Goldsack this year. So someone's got to want it enough and someone's got to be good enough. But Tubes, congratulations. I may not be your biggest fan, but I'm certainly happy with what you do for the club. And, it's a great achievement, definitely.
What was the feeling about McCaffrey's return?
It seemed fairly subdued from what I could see. I think the main positive was that he got through the game unscathed.
He got some early clearances, I heard. Well, I haven't seen the match, but so he seems to have been out and about. But I mean, he's just going to have a few games to warm up for next year. That's all.
That's another one. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not going to expect anything more from him at the moment.
Not this year. No.
Well, we are running out of time this evening, so I will start to wrap up. I will say, please keep in tune. Magpie Girl has been hard at work organising another exclusive interview. And any hints on when that might be available for us, Magpie Girl?
The end of next week.
End of next week. So keep in tune. This is another very special guest. No hints this week. But certainly an interview really worth listening to, as they all are. And you can find them all archived in the exclusive interviews thread, stickied at the top of the Collingwood board.
Yeah,
is that correct, Magpie Girl?
In the Magpie Nest.
In the Magpie Nest.
Yeah.
Great advertisement that was.
Get out more.
Absolutely. So we've got TD's rant coming up as well, don't we, Magpie Girl?
Yeah, we do. He's I don't know what he's done, but you know, TD. And congratulations to DD on his 60,000th post.
60,000 posts, two appearances on Woolly Street.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Yeah, what a star he is.
TD is just the man of the people at the moment, and just tearing it up. So
the man about Collingwood Town.
That's it. We all bask in his reflected glory. So no, he's done well, TD. I look forward to post 70,000, which should be in a couple of months, I imagine.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you, Magpie Girl, for coming on.
Thanks, Mighty T. Always a pleasure.
And thank you, GC.
Thanks, Mighty T. And I concur with your thoughts. Let's destroy Richmond's party.
Let's crash the party. That's always fun.
That would be nice. Yep.
This is the Mighty T signing out. Go Pies.
That's trade drafts. Around 20 rant. And well, there's only one really thing I can really rant about this week, which is our goal kicking. As we know, we saw against the Swans that we probably outplayed them for the longer time, but yet again we have more scoring shots and we lose. And the culprits were Pendlebury. Had a shocking game last. Kicked 1-3 and just wasn't himself. For Solo and Elliott Houghton had plenty of shots, but again shanked everything. Moore, he kicked one, and one he should have kicked on the angle, but seems to struggle a little bit in his goal kicking on the angle. But he's out in the arc, he's really good. But there's probably another one that would have liked him to kick. But the effort's there. You can definitely tell the effort's there because we're competing and not letting teams get away with us like we did. Like a little bit last year when we played Brisbane and Essendon, we got flogged in both games, absolutely flogged, and the effort was not there, and we just gave up on those games and lost accordingly. Well, the only game we could have in this year was against Melbourne, which we were absolutely pathetic against. Pathetic. Had no effort, didn't try. You just had to watch the game when they played the Western Bulldogs. They made them look third rate, and they knocked us off. Not good enough. Not good enough in that game, but the rest of the season been great. So hopefully we have 3 games left against Richmond, Geelong, and Essendon. Hopefully we can win one out of the Richmond and Geelong game and at least get a good scalp for the year. And then hopefully we can smash the Peptide Bombers in the last game by 100 plus like they have the last few years. But that's my rant, so I'll see you next week.